Let's go! So, the SEC will probably remain an 8-game conference schedule, at least for 2024. Today, we're going to go through Ross Dellenger's article about everything that is happening with the Southeastern Conference. And at the end, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the actual schedule format moving forward. So, obviously, you get through this first part here where essentially every year in Destin there are the SEC league meetings, and then about a month from now you will get the actual SEC media day. So obviously the big question is going to be 8 games or 9 for the conference schedule moving forward. And basically, just to give you the Cliff Notes version of this whole article, the SEC wants more money for for having an extra conference game. So basically put, you're not getting, I'm looking at you right now, a 9-game conference schedule unless ESPN is willing to fork over more money. Okay? So, one high-ranking SEC administrator says, yes, I do think it will happen. I don't see the desire to go to a 9th game and not have any increase from a revenue standpoint. So we shall see. Now, I'll skip this part because some within the league believe a 9th game is worth at least $5 million per school in additional revenue. I have some thoughts on that in just a second, okay? But this is where it gets interesting. I want you to think of the schools that would be in favor of a 9-game schedule, and Ross Dellenger reveals those schools, okay? Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M, LSU, and Missouri. We get to this right here. There is one big negative with a multi-year 8-game format. An 8-game schedule, 1 permanent plus 7 rotating opponents, will eliminate the league's secondary rivalry. Now that you have taken in this report, I'm going to give you my thoughts here at the end. Okay? The first thing that I will bring up is this is about the money. If SEC or the ESPN or whoever it may be were offering the SEC the $5 million extra dollars a year to all the schools to play the extra conference game, they would be playing the extra conference game. But ESPN's going through a ton of layoffs and so on and so on. So they obviously don't want to give the SEC any more money than they already have. So this idea that it's not about the money and it's about player safety, if they were getting the money, you would be getting a 9-game conference schedule. The second thing is a 9-game conference schedule is good for you, the neutral viewer, okay? 8-game conference schedules, it is so easy to manipulate the schedule with weaker non-conference games. And where I have issue is the week before rivalry week in November has been notoriously soft, and it's because of the non-conference limitations, or if you will, the non-conference games that a lot of teams like to set up before rivalry week. A lot of these SEC schools are wondering, what is the best way for us to position teams to get into the playoff? And the one thing that's always going to be true about college football postseason play, it's not about who you beat. It never has been and never will be. It's a major myth in college football. If you are a member of a Power 5 conference, the most important thing to do is not lose. It's to avoid losses. Nothing more, nothing less. So if you play an extra conference game, instead of playing Norfolk State or whoever it may be, you lose that guaranteed victory. And even with the playoff expanding to 12 teams in 2024, which would give you a little bit more wiggle room to lose a game, it is still better to avoid those losses to make sure you get into the playoff field. So honestly, I could see why the league and these teams want to avoid the extra conference game, and I very well could see it. Now, what I think would be the ultimate disaster, and I do think, an 8-game schedule would be fine. Part of the reason why I'm very excited about a 9-game schedule is the way the schedule would set itself up with 3 permanents and 6 rotating other teams is you would for sure play every team in your conference once every other year, and you would visit every SEC stadium minimum once every 4 years, and I think that is a very cool thing. But the one thing you do not want to happen, and this very well could be the case, is the SEC do what it's scheduling itself or setting itself up to do in 2024, which is have this permanent rivalry game be played, but also still have the secondary games be played. And then you're left with an even worse scenario than what we are in right now, right? Where you play your top rival, and then you also play your two next rivals, and then you're going to be in a situation where you're playing 3 schools every single season, and then you're only left with 5 other games for the remaining, 12 or so, not 12, there's 16, 11 conference opponents. And those schedules would be so imbalanced, right? You would be, I don't know exactly how that would look. And maybe I'm just totally misreading this situation, but I would hate 2024 to be the first year of the SEC and it's more of the same. Now, the one good thing about all of this is I do think the permanent cross-division rival rule has been very unfair for some of the schools in the SEC. So anything that beats what we have now, I think right now the SEC schedule is so crazy. Like, I'm still blown away that we have let the cross-division rival rule exist as long as it has, but that's not here nor there. The big thing, though, and this is the question that Greg Sankey and the SEC are probably asking themselves right now, okay? Obviously, they want to make the conference championship game remain relevant. They make a lot of money off of that. What they want to do, though, is get as many teams into the playoff as they possibly can. And adding an extra conference game, how much more revenue could that bring to the Southeastern Conference? They're already paying and getting what they're getting now, regardless if it's an 8 or a 9 game conference schedule. So why risk your teams getting extra losses and potentially extra injuries from you not actually getting into the playoff? Okay, that's a big question. And I've been to SEC Media Days where Greg Sankey has actually brought this up. The 8-game conference schedule has worked for the SEC up to this point. The SEC is in the playoff every year. The SEC is contending for the national championship each and every year. Why would you expand the conference schedule and make it more difficult in a system that's already been working for you? It's a good question, and I get it. But the issue is it's not good for the general public, right? I understand, especially if you're a lower half team, you don't want to play more conference schedules and you want to win more, and winning is important, and so on and so on and so on. But I'm telling you, more conference games equals a more balanced schedule, and everybody plays everybody more often. And that's what I personally want. I do not, and this very well could happen. Let's say the 2024 schedule happens and you have an 8-game conference schedule and you keep your permanent and then you keep a secondary or 2 secondary permanents. I don't want a 3-5 schedule. And I think that could potentially be what it is, right? So I hope that's not what's going to happen. But comment down below your thoughts. Are you excited about an 8-game 2024 conference schedule? Okay, let me know. It is Power Hour SEC. Boom! And tonight we are doing some buffalo chicken. Let's go!